The steak hissed as it hit the grill, fat crackling into fire. I flipped it with a rhythm I didn't have to think about. One eye on the meat, the other on Gina across the yard. She was laughing too hard, too long, too close. John Matthews stood next to her, nursing a beer like he owned the place. Tall, smug, cocky in that forgettable kind of way women swore was charming when they were 20 and stupid. He was her college what if, the one that got away, or more accurately, the one that flaked off to California before finals week. Now he was back in town for business, apparently. Real estate development, he said. I didn't ask. I tightened my grip on the tongs. That laugh, it wasn't for me. People were all around us. Neighbors. Friends. Our daughter Natalie was on the deck playing cornhole with Savannah and her boyfriend. It looked like a Norman Rockwell painting, but I've seen prettier pictures go up in flames. Hey, Henry, John called out, striding over like this was his backyard. Man, these steaks smell amazing. Still the grill master. Huh. I forced a nod. Are you hungry? Always, he grinned. Gina says you've been working like a dog lately. Bet she appreciates this. I didn't respond, just dropped a burger on his plate. Let the heat do the talking. Later that night, once the last dish was washed and the deck lights were off, I thought we were done. Thought it was just a weird night with an old face. But no. Gina stood in the doorway to the bedroom in one of those silky robes she only wore when she wanted something. But this time her eyes were distant, lips tight. We need to talk, she said. I sat on the edge of the bed. About John. She blinked. You noticed. I'm not blind, Gina. She came closer but didn't sit. Back in college, before you and I met, John and I were serious. We broke up because he moved, not because we stopped caring. I stared at her. That was over 20 years ago, and I never got closure. He reached out a few months ago. We've been talking. My throat went dry. You've been what? Texting. Sometimes I call. She hesitated, then delivered the kill shot. He says he still loves me, and I think I still love him too. I stood up. My voice stayed even. Are you cheating? No, not physically. I swear. Then what do you call this? She bit her lip like that made her brave. He wants to try again. He's willing to share with me. I froze. Say that again. He knows I love you too, but he says he thinks we could work out something. I'd spend some nights with you, some with him. We could make it fair. Felt like the floor gave out beneath me, not because of John, but because the woman I built a life with, 2 houses, a daughter, a marriage, thought this was love. You want to pass yourself around like a casserole dish? Go right ahead, I said quietly. But don't expect me to take leftovers. She winced. That's not fair. Neither is stabbing someone and handing them the knife afterward. She stepped closer, pleading. I'm being honest, Henry. I didn't want to hide this. I thought. No. I cut in, finally letting my voice rise. You didn't think at all. I grabbed a spare pillow and the fleece blanket from the guest room closet and headed for the couch. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the effort it took not to punch a hole through the drywall. As I lay there staring at the ceiling fan spin slow circles, all I could think was this. She wasn't mine anymore. Not because she'd kissed him or slept with him or run off, but because the second she considered sharing herself like a timeshare, she stopped being a wife and turned into an offer I didn't ask for. Tomorrow I'll leave, and I wouldn't come back to the same man. Morning hit like a hammer to the chest. I was up before the sun, sitting on the edge of the couch in yesterday's jeans, trying to breathe through the tightness in my ribs. My coffee sat untouched, cold, like everything else in the house. Gina hadn't come out of the bedroom. I didn't need another conversation. Didn't need a debate, a compromise, or another ridiculous proposal dressed up as mature love. I needed space. My own goddamn space, because there wasn't a square foot in this house that didn't now stink of humiliation. So I left. No note, no scene. Just keys, wallet, truck. I drove with no plan. Burned half a tank of gas before I realized I was just circling the outer belt. Every red light felt like a dare. Every exit was a way out I hadn't taken soon enough. Around noon, I ended up parked behind an old hardware store I used to take Natalie to on Saturdays. She liked the candy jars at the register. It had been years. The place looked smaller now, faded. Like me, I stared at the dashboard, thought about how easily she'd said it, split her time, as if love was a calendar event, as if I was supposed to nod, shake John's hand, and say, "Sure, let's take turns." Hell no. By the time I pulled into the driveway again that evening, the air had changed. So had I. Gina was on the porch, arms crossed, like I owed her an explanation. "You just left," she said. "No, Gina." I walked out with the last ounce of self-respect I had. She stepped toward me. "You didn't even want to talk?" "I already did." I pushed past her into the house. The place looked the same, but now it felt like it belonged to someone else. "I'm trying to be honest with you," she called from the hallway. "Most people would lie, cheat. I brought it to you like an adult." I turned. "You brought it to me like a sales pitch, like I'm supposed to co-sign my own replacement." Her face twisted. "You don't understand how complicated this is." "No," I snapped. "I understand exactly how simple it is. You caught feelings for someone else. That's fine. But don't you dare spin it like you're doing me a favor by offering me half of what I already had." She paused, maybe expecting me to soften. I didn't. "Henry, I love you," she said quietly. "No," I said. "You don't. You're wrong. If you did, this conversation wouldn't exist." Silence. I headed straight to the bedroom, pulled the suitcase from the closet, and began filling it. Shirts, boots, jeans, work gloves, the essentials. Everything else was just background noise. She stood in the doorway, arms limp now. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Somewhere you're not." She choked back a gasp. "So that's it? You're just going to throw everything away?" I zipped the bag. "I didn't throw it. You handed it over like a trade deal." I walked out without another word, slammed the door hard enough to make the siding tremble. That night, I crashed at an old friend's place. Cole, a welder from the job site who always kept the garage fridge stocked and the couch clear for men like me. Men who needed a place to land after their lives exploded. We didn't talk much. Didn't need to. He handed me a beer. "You want to hit something? The heavy bags in the basement." I didn't. Not yet. But I knew the next few days would be war. Legal filings. Property divisions. Lawyers asking if I wanted mediation. I wanted scorched earth. Still, I didn't act out. Didn't scream or break things or show up on John's porch with a bat like some unhinged ex-husband. I'd seen what that did. That wasn't strength. That was desperation in boots. No, I did what real men do when someone pisses on their marriage vows. I handled it like business. The next morning, I called the lawyer I'd helped build a deck for last summer, Frank Alcott. Good guy, quiet, efficient, lethal in court. "Henry," he said, "you sound like a man who just saw his wife throw everything away." "She didn't throw it, Frank. She tried to share it." He didn't laugh. He understood. By the end of the week, divorce papers were prepped, signed, and served. And just like that, the woman I once thought I'd grow old with became just another line item in a county file drawer. The driveway looked different, not because the concrete had changed, but because my truck wasn't in it. Instead, a silver Mercedes sat there, parked too close to the garage like it had been there overnight, like it belonged. John's car. I let the engine idle at the curb and stared. My name was still on the mortgage, still on the insurance, still tied to the life I'd built brick by brick with my own hands. But somehow I was the outsider now. That car was more than metal and rubber. It was a message, a warning. I didn't even get angry this time. Not the way I expected. It was something colder, heavier, like sandbags filling my chest. I pulled away and drove off. No knock on the door. No yelling. No scene. She'd made her choice. I just hadn't realized how quickly she'd cash it in. I stopped by a motel on the edge of town, the kind of place with squeaky beds and buzzing lights. I needed to grab the rest of my things from storage and crash somewhere until I could find a proper rental. The room was small, stale, and smelled faintly of carpet shampoo and regret. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened my phone. Missed call from Savannah. Voicemail from Natalie. I hit play. Dad, I just left Mom's. I saw John's car in the garage. She didn't even try to hide it. She said he's staying over now. She laughed, Dad, like it's a joke, like you were just filler. I lost it. I told her she disgusted me. She told me I was being immature. I swear I wanted to scream. I just, call me. Okay? Please. I love you. I sat in silence, her words pounding harder than any punch. Natalie was my daughter, my flesh and blood, and now she was the only one in that house with a shred of sense. I called her back. She answered on the first ring. Dad. Hey, sweetheart. Are you okay? I hesitated. I will be. There was a pause. Then, she's not the same anymore. No, she's not. She said you abandoned her, that you overreacted, that you were controlling. That one hit deep. I never raised my voice to your mom unless the dog had an accident on the rug. I said, controlling. She's rewriting the whole story, like you're the bad guy for not agreeing to whatever sick mess they're doing. She always had a talent for spinning things. You saw what really happened. That's enough for me. Natalie sniffed. She told Savannah to get used to John. Not my house anymore, I said. Not my rules. I'm coming to see you, she said. This weekend. I want to stay with you. Where I'm staying doesn't have much space, Nat. I don't care. I just want to be around someone who hasn't lost their damn mind. She always did take after me more than Gina. That night, I sat outside the motel under a flickering porch light, sipping cheap coffee from a vending machine cup, watching moths suicide themselves against the bulb. A man can only get slapped in the face so many times before the sting fades. What's left is clarity. Clean, ugly clarity. Gina wasn't torn between two men. She had already made the trade. John wasn't a maybe. He was a replacement. And the kicker? She didn't even wait for the ink to dry. But this wasn't going to break me. Let her have her wine nights and yoga excuses and whatever cheap thrill John brought back from college memories. Let her pretend this was some enlightened love triangle and not just plain old betrayal dressed in modern talk. I had more than pride left. I had dignity, and dignity doesn't beg. The new place sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, tucked behind rows of mature maples and weathered fences. It wasn't flashy. 3 bedrooms, an old shed out back, and a cracked driveway that needed resealing. But it was mine. No shared closets. No echoes of perfume or silk robes or betrayal. I moved in with nothing but a few boxes, a borrowed couch, and a mattress strapped to the roof of my pickup like a banner of independence. No help, no tearful goodbye. Just me, sweat, and a crowbar to yank off whatever curtain rods Gina had picked out 10 years ago and replaced in my head with something solid. The neighbors noticed. Started small. The guy across the street, Richard Monroe, wandered over while I was unloading lumber from the bed of my truck. Table project? He asked, nodding toward the oak planks. Bench? I said. Porch needs one. He looked at me the way men do when they recognize their own kind. Hands rough, shoulders square, no appetite for nonsense. I've got a belt sander if you need it, he said. My wife Ruth makes me fix every damn thing around here. You'll see. By the weekend, I'd been offered 6 tools, 2 leftover buckets of exterior paint, and 1 suspiciously strong lemonade that turned out to be 90% bourbon. Neighborhood currency, I guess. Then came her. Taylor Monroe, mid-30s, long black hair tied back in a no-nonsense ponytail, cargo shorts, and boots that had seen more dirt than most men's shoes. She was carrying a busted weed whacker when we met, cursing at it like it owed her money. She didn't smile when she saw me. You the new guy in 82? She asked, eyes narrow. I am. Are you a handyman or just pretending? I build things, fix things, manage projects. Not much for pretending. She stared for a beat longer than polite, then nodded, unsatisfied but accepting. You want people to like you around here. Don't mow your lawn before 8 a.m., she said, turning on her heel before I could answer. Noted. Taylor was Ruth and Richard's daughter, living 2 houses down. Divorced. No kids. She helped out around the neighborhood. But there was a wall around her you could see from space. Didn't matter. I wasn't here to meet anyone. I was here to rebuild. Quietly. Still, over the next week, our paths crossed more than coincidence should have allowed. She walked her dog when I was putting up storm gutters, hauled mulch while I was sanding the bench, glanced at my fence project and muttered, "You're digging too shallow," without breaking stride. On Thursday, I saw her kicking the tire of an old Subaru in her driveway. Hood popped, tools scattered. I stood at the curb. "Want a second pair of eyes?" She turned. "Do you know what you're looking at? If it's got a carburetor, I can probably figure it out." She chewed her cheek, nodded. "Fine." 2 hours, 1 fuel filter, and 3 sarcastic comments later, the car started. She looked at me for the first time, really looked. "Thanks. Don't mention it." "No, I mean, thank you. Not many guys help without expecting something back." I shrugged. "I'm not most guys." She smiled then, just a flicker, but it was real. That night, as I sat on the porch bench I'd finished the day before, sipping a cold beer and watching the stars blink awake above the rooftops, I realized something strange. This place didn't feel like exile, felt like a second shot. The kind a man earns after walking away from the wreckage with his spine intact. I still had the scars, still felt the ache of every word Gina threw like a knife. But in this cul-de-sac, with its cracked sidewalks and paint-stained driveways, there was no judgment. Just people who showed up, handed you tools, and let you build something new. Maybe Taylor didn't trust me easily. Maybe I didn't either. But trust wasn't the foundation. Respect was. And for the first time in a long time, I was standing on solid ground. Taylor didn't do small talk. She didn't flirt. She didn't linger in doorways or bat her eyelashes or pretend to laugh at things that weren't funny. She was sharp, quick, and private, like a locked drawer in a fireproof cabinet. And that's exactly why I respected her. I wasn't looking for anything, not really. I'd just gotten out of a marriage where I gave everything and still got handed a knife in return. But Taylor felt like something else entirely. Real, grounded, maybe even dangerous, but in a way that kept you honest. I fixed her car, then her parents' porch railing, then a leaky faucet in her bathroom when her dad accidentally mentioned it over coffee like he hadn't been scheming all along. She tried to pay me each time. Cash, beer, tools. I always refused. "Don't mistake me for a charity case," she said one afternoon, standing with her arms crossed as I packed up my drill. I just don't take money for helping neighbors. You keep that up and people are going to think you're soft." "I'm not soft," I said, slamming the truck tailgate shut. "Just not bitter enough to charge interest on decency." She stared at me, lips twitching. "You're strange. You say that like it's an insult." That night, I ran into her again, unexpectedly, at a bar on the edge of town. One of those places with sticky floors, live blues, and bartenders who don't waste time asking if you want your whiskey neat. She was wearing jeans and boots, her hair down for once, standing near the jukebox while a few guys hovered too close. One of them, in a camo cap and an attitude, grabbed her elbow as she tried to walk away. I saw it from across the room, and I moved. I didn't raise my voice, didn't make a scene. I just stepped between them, looked the guy in the eye and said, "She said no." "Who the hell are you?" he snapped. "Someone who doesn't like repeating himself." He looked me over, noticed the shoulders, the calloused hands, the scar on my forearm from a framing accident years ago. He backed off. Taylor said nothing, just grabbed her drink and walked toward the back patio without looking at me. I followed because something about her silence didn't feel like dismissal. We stood outside under strings of yellow lights that buzzed like bees. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Didn't feel like a choice." She looked at me, eyes searching. "You always play the white knight?" "No. I just don't like bullies." She took a long sip. "I've had enough men try to rescue me just to tie me up later. I don't need saving." "I didn't save you," I said. "I just reminded him you weren't alone." Her mouth softened. "That's different. I'm not looking for anything, Taylor. not a rebound, not a project. I've been through enough fire to know what burns and what doesn't. I'm just a guy who fixes things when he can. She stepped closer, slowly, close enough that I caught a hint of cedar and lavender in her hair. Maybe, she said, voice low. I've been broken too long to be fixed. I shook my head. You're not broken, just cautious. The air shifted, and she kissed me. Slow, hesitant, but with something behind it. Not desperation, not lust, just the truth. It was the kind of kiss that made you forget the last woman who hurt you. The kind that didn't ask for anything but offered everything. We didn't go home together that night. No rush, no fog of alcohol or reckless need. Just a long drive back under quiet stars, headlights slicing the dark. But something changed. She trusted me just a little, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight of betrayal slip off my shoulders, even if only for a moment. The dining table was old pine, slightly warped, with mismatched chairs that creaked every time someone leaned back. Ruth had cooked a full spread: roast chicken, sweet potatoes, cornbread, and Taylor had set the table without a word. It wasn't a holiday, but it sure felt like a test. Natalie sat across from me, her eyes bouncing between Taylor and her parents like she couldn't decide if this was a trap or a Hallmark movie. She hadn't stopped smiling since she walked in, though. Seeing me happy again, I guess. I was still getting used to that. You really fixed her radiator for free? Ruth asked, passing me the butter. Yes, ma'am, I said. Boy, like that's a keeper, she muttered to Taylor. Taylor rolled her eyes. We're not a thing. Natalie smirked. Sure you're not. The table chuckled. Even Richard cracked a grin behind his sweet tea. Felt good, too good, maybe, like I was sitting in someone else's life. But when Taylor's hand brushed mine under the table, just a small graze, it grounded me. This was real, different than anything with Gina ever was. No performative romance, no manipulation hiding under smiles. Just honesty, brutal but clean. After dinner, Taylor asked me to go for a walk. We took the long route down the cul-de-sac, then into a patch of wooded trail behind the neighborhood. The air was cool, thick with pine and wet soil, quiet except for the crunch of our boots. So, she said, breaking the silence, are we ever going to talk about it? Talk about what? Why would a man like you, loyal, capable, proud, ended up divorced and living in a house with nothing but tools and a lawn chair? I stopped walking, looked out over the trees. You want the short version or the truth? Truth. I nodded, took a breath. She wanted someone else, someone from her past. Told me she loved us both and asked if I'd be okay sharing her. Like she was some community fundraiser being passed around. I packed my things the same night. Taylor didn't say anything. She didn't need to. She moved him in before I was even out the door. I added. Mercedes in my garage, drinking out of my mugs. I never raised a hand, never screamed, just left. You did the right thing. It didn't feel like it, not at first. But it does now? I looked over. Yeah, it does. She nodded. Her eyes were soft, but not pitiful. My ex, she said. He liked control. Started small critiques about my friends, my clothes, my tone. Then came the tracking apps, the random pop-ins at work, the gaslighting. He never hit me, but he broke things in a way I couldn't see until I'd already stopped recognizing myself. I felt the anger rise. Not for her, but for what she'd lived through. That any man would waste a woman like this just to feel taller. He didn't deserve you, I said. And Gina didn't deserve you. We kept walking in silence after that. But the quiet felt warm now, like shared armor. When we reached her porch, she didn't invite me in. She just stepped close, laid her hand flat on my chest and said, I don't do fast, and I don't do fantasy. I'm not asking for either. I need to know that if I let myself care, you won't turn into him. I won't. You sure? I nodded. Because he didn't walk through fire to find peace. I did. She leaned in, rested her forehead against mine for a moment. Just long enough for me to close my eyes and breathe in the scent of home. Then she kissed me again. No hesitation this time. And in that kiss, I felt something I hadn't known I was waiting for. Not passion, not comfort, but truth. The call came on a rainy Tuesday just after lunch. I was in the workshop, smoothing down a cedar beam for Taylor's garden box, when Natalie's name lit up the screen. Her voice was tight, scared. "Dad, there's been an accident. Mom and John. Highway 74. A semi clipped them. He's dead. Mom's in the hospital. They don't know if she'll." I didn't ask how she knew. I just told her I'd meet her there. The hospital was all antiseptic halls and humming machines. Natalie was waiting near the ICU, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold in something heavy. I hugged her without a word. She looked up at me. "I know what she did, but she's still my mom. You don't have to explain. I came for you." The nurse let us in. Gina lay on the bed, bruised, pale, hooked to monitors. She wasn't sedated, but she looked like someone who had been through more pain than even her ego could mask. Her eyes met mine. She didn't speak. Neither did I. I pulled up a chair, sat beside her, and let the silence do the talking. Every second stretched like a wire between us. We weren't married anymore. I didn't know her comfort, but I could offer closure. Finally, she spoke. "He was driving. We were arguing. I didn't ask over what. I kept saying you were cold, that you walked away like I meant nothing." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you ever stop to ask why I walked?" She winced. "I thought I could have both. People don't work that way. Not real ones." A long pause. Machines beeped softly behind us. "I was stupid," she whispered. "Yeah," I said. "You were." She nodded, tears welling now. "Not performative, just tired." "Bro, I don't hate you, Gina," I said, "but I also don't love you. That ended the day you offered me half of what I'd already earned. I lost everything." "No," I said. "You traded it." She looked away. "Natalie's the only reason I'm still breathing. She's a good reason." I stood up. "Henry, do you forgive me?" I didn't answer right away, because forgiveness isn't a favor. It's not a second chance. It's a release. "I do," I said, "but it's not for you." She blinked. "Then for who?" "For me. I'm not carrying your choices anymore." She sobbed quietly, shoulders shaking. I walked out of that room feeling 20 pounds lighter. I didn't feel victorious. Didn't feel vindicated. I felt done. Natalie followed me out. "Are you okay?" "I am," I said. "Are you?" She nodded. "You were the better person there." "No," I said. "I was the right one." That night, back home, Taylor met me at the porch with her hands on her hips and concern in her eyes. "You good?" she asked. I nodded. "Just buried the past." She stepped closer. "Permanently?" "Yep. Cemented and sealed." She didn't ask for details. She just pulled me into her arms and let me stand there under the porch light, rain still trickling off the roof. I held her like she was the first real thing I'd touched in years. Because she was. The kids were louder than the thunderstorm rolling in. Taylor stood in the doorway, towel drying our youngest boy's hair while the girls played chase through the hallway in mismatched pajamas. I sat on the old bench I'd built that first week in the neighborhood, a cold beer in my hand, watching the rain start to tap against the railings. My boots were muddy, my back was sore, and I wouldn't trade a second of it for the polished life I thought I had years ago. Taylor came out and sat beside me, barefoot, hair in a loose braid. She rested her head on my shoulder, and for a long moment, we just listened to the rain. "You know," she said, "this house always creaked in storms." "I noticed." I smirked. "I just fixed it." She chuckled. "Fitting." The porch light buzzed, casting a soft glow over the yard, where our son's toy truck was half buried in the garden bed. It was chaos. It was imperfect. It was ours. Natalie visited often, still called me Dad, even though she didn't have to. Savannah too, though more reserved. They'd both found their own paths, their own healing. Gina lived somewhere out west now. We didn't talk. There was nothing left to say, and that was fine. Sometimes life doesn't give you the ending you planned. It gives you the one you earned. People still ask me how I got past the betrayal, how I kept from burning it all down. I tell them the truth. I didn't forgive her for her sake. I forgave her because carrying that hate would have bled into everything I was trying to build. It would have tainted Taylor's kindness, my kids' laughter, this porch, this peace. You don't rebuild a life with bitterness. You rebuild it with grit, with silence, with the steady hand of a man who knows what he lost and still chooses not to give up on what's left. Taylor squeezed my hand. Did you ever think you'd end up here? Not even once. Still wish things turned out different? I looked at her, at the house behind us, at the noise and the life and the warmth in her eyes. No, I said. This is exactly where I was meant to be. And in that moment, I finally believed it.